League of Legends is suffering from an identity crisis. When you play League of Legends, one of the main aspects or playstyles of the game that you will most likely describe is probably flashy. League of Legends is flashy, it is exciting and visually stimulating game with characters who have unique and powerful abilities and intense and skill-based battles. The game is centered around these exhilarating, dynamic and intense fights against the champions that you play against, which may be in a team fight or in the laning phase. Look at the champion Yone, for example, highly versatile and can do a lot of cool stuff with his mobility and high amount of skill shots. Zarya as well, where you can kite enemies, and your auto attacks are literal skill shots, which differ from every League champion. League of Legends also doesn't push itself to provide a lot of active items, solely relying on unique passives that items provide or just plain stats, so you can focus more on your skill expression through abilities. League prides itself on these fun and intense fights. That is the main selling point of League, or the main difference when it comes to other games. If you look at Dota 2, the amount of skill shots and high mobility spells are significantly less. It's dumbed down, it's point and click, it's more strategic rather than skill expressive mechanics. We can take a look at Ogre Magi, for example. His Q is a point and click stun, his W is a point and click damage over time and slow, and his E is a point and click buff for your allies. His ult is actually a gambling machine passive which doubles your abilities on a random percent chance. We also have Phantom Assassin, point and click Q which deals damage, applies on-hit effects and slows. Her W is a point and click blink which provides attack speed and lifesteal. Her E is literally just a passive that provides evasion, and an active where you can go invisible. Her ult is literally just a passive that gives crit chance that provides massive amount of damage. Sniper basically has only 2 abilities, otherwise it's just auto attack people to death from insane range. Oh, and those 2 abilities? It's either an AoE or a point and click damage. Now, I'm not saying that League doesn't have a strategical side of things. It does with macro plays, wave management, jungle tracking, etc. And Dota 2 has heroes that are really skill expressive in terms of their decision making, for example. Let's take heroes such as Invoker, which could be said to have a million abilities. I mean, just look at the amount of stuff here. Or Arc Warden, which has a lot of point and click massive AoE spells in his kit, but provides a clone of himself that gives him numerous benefits, but nevertheless requires intense micro commands and planning by queuing up orders if you're busy with one clone but keeping another clone still efficient. A generalized rule often has exceptions, and this applies very much in games like League of Legends and Dota 2, but the main part of the dish is the fact that League focuses on skill expressive mechanics and Dota 2 relies on strategic and skill decisive aspects. This is fine. Focusing on one gameplay focus is fine and encouraged. The problem I have with League of Legends is that while it's being a game made for skill expressive mechanics, it also encounters that by having too much damage in the game. Most of what we've seen in League of Legends, especially the last 2 years, is bursts being meta and so overpowered. You will a lot of time just get one shot by champions where you 1, either of you die, or 2, one of you have to leave the lane and recall because you literally lost all of your HP without retaliating. This also has the effect of where teamfights in League of Legends, especially in solo queue, will just last a few seconds and not feel as accomplishing. While playing Dota 2, for example, teamfights last a long time and they feel very fulfilling to win. In League, it's just no emotion gained or lost. The biggest evidence I have for this is that Riot Games actually tried to solve this damage meta by introducing the durability patch in May of 2022. But this didn't last long, as Riot slowly introduced back damage increases on a lot of champions, slowly undoing what the durability patch set out to do. If you increase the resistances of champions, then the damage dealt on them will naturally be less. However, if you then increase the damage on top of that, you are kind of counteracting what durability patch set out to do in the first place. My problem with League is that it's having an identity crisis. This is where League is in a state of confusion on what it wants to be, or rather counteracting what League of Legends was set out to be. If you want to have skill expressive mechanics in a game, you must allow for it to happen. Overloaded kits.
If we're being completely honest, we don't think our champions have overloaded kits overall.
Wait till Hansama lands 1 Q and it's all over. Definitely Hansama. Wait, a lot of damage, it's not done yet. I wrote his death warrant, but he's still alive. Inex is looking to get a second. He gets a double kill. The lifesteal, the death stars. What is happening? Inex is turning around to Hunt out. Here it's going low, less than 1,000. He's taken out. Inspired needs a reset to break the hearts of all Misfits fans. But Kobe stays alive. The shield bow keeps him out.
He's dead.
Finally goes down. Inspired's got the reset. It's a 2v1. Looking for another. Results in so much trouble.
Truly the pinnacle if their design team has a collective 200 years of experience, but there's more to the list of things counteracting skill expression in League of Legends. Bursty spell abilities and items, shorter team fights as a result of overloaded damage will all contribute to a less skill expressive environment. If a tank like Malphite can one-shot an ADC in one rotation, or coming back to my point number 2 where the ADC is literally so low HP it cannot function properly, then how can you play and express your skill? Surely a tank is not supposed to kill an ADC in one go, that is the job for assassins after all. Even mages who can opt into items that grant them 4000 HP, which is way beyond what a normal top laner gets on 2 items. And they still do incredible damage and be unkillable. This is just what drives League of Legends into an unknown period of what it wants to be. If one shot is the gameplay focused, I don't mind it, but at least allow it to be counterplay, to allow players to actually play the game. In Dota 2, a lot of the point and click, massive stun durations with chain CC, bursty abilities that nuke people immediately is actually counteracted and skillfully displayed in the item sections of Dota. Dota 2 is actually balanced around an item named Black King Bar, which actually just provides you spell immunity from any kind of spell. However, there is a disclaimer here that some spells do pierce spell immunity, but then the damage from the spell is not really applied. You can literally buy almost any item in Dota 2 to counteract any champion in Dota 2. It's a nice balance. It allows for people to play the game, and it allows people to have fun and these long and engaging team fights. And hey, even if you get one shot, you can buy back to get back into the game. That enemy champion that bursted you might not have the ability ready as you come back, but that buyback might have the opportunity cost because you can come back to the game, but if you die again and the enemy pushes for your base, that's it. The game is lost. In League, there's no such option. They had a revive spell before, but this was removed. Note that almost any item can work on your hero in Dota 2, even if the stat is provided by the item is not necessarily optimal for your champion. For example, Timbersaw is a strength hero, but a lot of times you build intelligence rather than strength on this champion because he has such a need for mana regeneration and mana in general. This provides good build options into items that can dispel silences, for example, which could make your hero useless as Timbersaw thrives when he can use his abilities. League doesn't have that option. If you're playing Yone, for example, you have a need to survive high amount of bursts. Your option to survive those bursts is very limited. You cannot opt into Sonia's because ability power on Yone is completely useless. Items like Sterik's Gauge provides good amount of anti-burst, but is not optimal to build on Yone because, again, he doesn't thrive on the stats provided by Sterik's Gauge. You can build Shieldbow and you can build Bloodthirster, as these items will provide you some sort of anti-burst, but it's nowhere near what's needed for Yone, and Shieldbow has been heavily nerfed in the past as well. Even so, if the enemy team has the ability to buy Serpent's Fang, your option for defense is incredibly discriminated against. Sure, you have the option to buy Guardian's Angel after buying your core items, and even so, Guardian's Angel has a 5-minute cooldown with the option to use Stopwatch only once, as it's a part of the items that you build up to Guardian's Angel. That 5-minute cooldown is incredibly long, and in late game situations where you're most likely to buy Guardian's Angel, then this item will only be used once, and that's it. That is the problem with League of Legends, and what is causing it to be an identity crisis. The original gameplay focus that League of Legends was set out to be is now being heavily paradoxed by the amount of damage and lack of counterplay ability in the game. As a result, one cannot really sense the direction that League is going towards as a game. I am very curious as to if I am the only one who believes this, but I do admit I have seen some forum posts about people being more aware of this situation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, as I hope to learn something insightful on this topic.